Tonight, before you fall asleep, you'll probably do something that feels completely normal. You'll check your phone. Maybe one last message, one last video, one last scroll. A tiny habit, a tiny action, yet it connects you to something no human in history ever experienced before. Because for almost all of human existence, information travels slower than a horse. Think about that. For thousands of years, your ancestors lived entire lives without knowing what happened beyond the next town. News took weeks, sometimes months, sometimes it never arrived at all. But then, something extraordinary happened. A generation was born into one world and grew old in another. A generation that remembers life before the internet. And one day, they may be the last people alive who do. That sounds impossible, but it isn't. Because right now, you're living through one of the biggest transformations in human history. And most people barely notice it. Imagine waking up in 1985. No smartphone, no Google, no YouTube, no social media, no GPS, no online shopping, no streaming, no cloud storage, no instant answers. You want to know something? You go to a library. You use a paper map. You miss a TV show? It's gone. You wait for a rerun. You want to talk to a friend? You call their house. Not them, their house. And someone else might answer first. Your entire life moved at a different speed, a slower speed, a more uncertain speed. And uncertainty shaped people. Today, uncertainty feels like a problem. Back then, uncertainty was normal. People got used to not knowing where someone was, not knowing the answer immediately, not knowing what would happen next. Strangely, that uncertainty gave people something modern life often steals: patience. Researchers studying delayed gratification have long shown that the ability to wait influences decision-making, self-control, and long-term success. Yet modern technology has trained your brain to expect answers instantly. A question appears, a search begins, an answer arrives, seconds later. Convenient? Absolutely. But something else changed too, with waiting. The internet didn't just change how information moved. It changed how your mind experiences time. For most of history, boredom was unavoidable. You waited in lines. You sat quietly. You stared out windows. You walked without headphones. You existed alone with your thoughts. Today, boredom rarely survives more than a few seconds. The moment silence appears, a screen fills it. The moment waiting appears, entertainment arrives. The moment discomfort appears, distraction follows. At first, that sounds wonderful. Who wants to be bored? But psychologists discovered something interesting. Many creative breakthroughs happen during moments of mental wandering. When your brain isn't focused on a task, it begins connecting ideas in unexpected ways. Some of humanity's greatest insights emerge during walks, quiet moments, and idle reflection. The internet solved boredom. But it may also have reduced some of the conditions that help creativity grow. And that's only the beginning. Because the internet didn't just change individuals, it changed relationships. Before the internet, friendship required effort. Real effort. If your friend lived across town, you traveled. If someone moved away, staying connected became difficult. Relationships survived because people actively maintained them. Today, communication is easier than ever. You can send a message across the planet, instantly. You can see photos from another continent, seconds after they're taken. You can join communities with millions of people. Yet many surveys show rising loneliness in multiple countries. How is that possible? How can humanity become more connected and lonelier all at once, while many people feel more alone? Because connection and closeness aren't the same thing. The internet is incredible at creating connection, But closeness requires something deeper. Time, presence, attention, things that are becoming harder to protect, especially when every app competes for them. Anthropologists often describe humans as social animals, shaped by face-to-face interaction. For hundreds of thousands of years, your brain evolved around physical communities. Eyes meeting eyes, voices sharing space, people gathering around fires. Not screens, not notifications, not endless feeds. Your brain still expects the ancient version, even when modern life delivers something very different. That's why many people feel strangely exhausted after hours online. You receive social stimulation, but often without the emotional satisfaction your brain evolved to seek. And nowhere is this more visible than family life. Picture a dinner table in 1990. Conversations, stories, arguments, laughter, silence, people sharing the same moment. Now picture many dinner tables today. Everyone present, but somewhere else. One person scrolling, another texting, another watching videos. The room is full, yet attention is scattered. The internet gave every person a private universe, an infinite world carried in a pocket. And while that world offers extraordinary opportunities, it also competes with the people sitting beside you. The generation that remembers life before the internet often notices this immediately, because they remember what changed. They remember when conversations lasted longer. They remember getting lost. They remember waiting. They remember writing phone numbers on paper. They remember calling someone without knowing whether they'd answer. They remember a world with fewer options and fewer interruptions. Was that world better? Not necessarily. The internet solved countless problems. Access to knowledge exploded. Medical information became easier to find. Education reached millions. Small businesses gained global audiences. Families separated by oceans could stay connected. Lives improved in countless ways. This isn't a story about nostalgia. It's a story about perspective. Because every generation believes its world is normal. But normal changes faster than people realize. A child born today may never understand what it felt like to wait weeks for information, just as most people today can't imagine waiting months for a handwritten letter to cross an ocean. The famous historian Yuval Noah Harari often points out that humans adapt incredibly quickly. What feels revolutionary today becomes ordinary tomorrow, and then invisible. The internet followed that pattern perfectly. The greatest communication revolution in history became background noise. A miracle became routine. A superpower became expected. Think about what happens when you ask a question today. Within seconds you can access more information than kings possessed for most of history. That would have seemed like magic. Not advanced technology, magic. Yet because it exists, your brain treats it as normal. Humans are remarkable at adapting, but adaptation comes with a cost. You stop noticing what changed. You stop asking what was gained and what was lost. The last generation that remembers life before the internet carries both memories. They remember the frustrations and they remember the freedoms. They remember being disconnected and they remember being present. They remember having less information and sometimes less anxiety. Because another consequence of the internet emerged quietly. Comparison. For most of history, people compared themselves to neighbors, friends, co-workers, family members. Today you're exposed to millions of lives, millions of achievements, millions of highlights, millions of carefully edited moments. Your brain wasn't designed for that. Evolution prepared you for tribes, not global audiences, not infinite comparison, not 24-hour exposure to everyone else's success. Psychologists have repeatedly observed connections between social comparison and reduced well-being. Not because success is harmful, but because constant comparison changes how success feels. Someone will always appear richer, happier, more attractive, more accomplished. The internet expanded possibility, but it also expanded comparison. Again, a trade-off. Again, a change invisible to many people living inside it. And perhaps that's why this story matters. Because someday the people who remember both worlds will be gone. The last people who experienced childhood before the internet. The last people who remember paper maps, busy phone signals, video rental stores, photo albums, encyclopedias, waiting, wondering, getting lost, finding out later. When that generation disappears, humanity loses a living bridge between two realities. One world built on scarcity of information, another built on abundance. And maybe that's why their memories are valuable. Not because the past was perfect, but because comparison creates wisdom. They can remind you that instant answers aren't the only way to live, that boredom isn't always an enemy, that waiting sometimes has value, that presence matters, attention matters, that people matter, more than algorithms, more than feeds, more than notifications. Tonight, before you check your phone one last time, think about something strange. For nearly all of human history,